Congress on Wednesday, voting 240 to 27, extends martial law in Mindanao by a year, or from January 1, 2018 to December 31, 2018, upon the request of President Rodrigo Duterte.
Pursuant to the Constitution and the rules of the joint session, the motion to further extend the proclamation of martial law and the suspension of the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus is hereby approved by the Congress of the Republic of the Philippines.
This is the second extension of martial law in Mindanao. Congress earlier granted Duterte's request for a 5-month martial law extension, which was supposed to end on December 31 this year. The Senate and the House of Representatives also extend by a year the suspension of the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus, which would allow the government to arrest persons of interest without a warrant. During the 4-hour deliberations, lawmakers questioned officials from the executive on the rationale for the 1-year extension. Duterte earlier asked Congress to extend martial law in Mindanao by 1 year to totally eradicate ISIS-inspired terrorist groups. Senate Minority Leader Frank Drilon warns the 1-year extension could be a prelude to a nationwide declaration of military rule. He insists the request is unconstitutional because the 1987 Constitution requires actual rebellion, not just threats, before making such a proclamation. Congress ratifies the 2018 3.767 trillion peso national budget Tuesday. The proposed General Appropriations Act is approved by the Bicameral Conference Committee the same day, following adjustments and compromises from both chambers. Among the most contentious provisions in the budget was the difference between the Public Works Department budget of the Senate and the House. Senator Panfilo Lacson initially slashed more than 50 billion pesos from the DPWH budget, citing right-of-way issues. Legislators from both chambers opposed this. Senator Lauren Legarda, chairperson of the Senate Finance Committee, says the 50.7 billion pesos was restored to the department. The DPWH is given an additional 11 billion pesos despite right-of-way issues. Lacson asks Legarda to provide a breakdown of the DPWH projects to be funded by the additional 11 billion pesos. Legarda says these were not lump sum amounts and assures Lacson she would provide the breakdown by next week. The Bicameral Conference Committee also agreed to scrap the 500 million pesos originally intended for the government's Masa Masid program, the anti-drug campaign of the Interior Department. The 900 million pesos originally intended for Oplan Double Barrel or the War on Drugs of the Philippine National Police is scrapped and reallocated for the housing of police and soldiers. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III slams French pharmaceutical giant Sanofi Pasteur for mental dishonesty over its dengue vaccine, Dengvaxia. Duque, during a joint committee hearing at the House of Representatives Wednesday, questions why days after their first advisory, Sanofi said they observed grade 1 and grade 2 symptoms and never saw grade 4 symptoms. Sanofi in November announced Dengvaxia could lead to more severe cases of dengue when administered on individuals who had not been infected by the virus prior the immunization. Duque says, quote, they shifted gears. They were trying to water down the impact of their initial advisory that created public uproar. Sanofi Pasteur Asia Pacific head Thomas Triumph earlier insisted there is no reason for a public scare. Triumph says, quote, there is no such thing as any vaccine that has no adverse event. It is the work of the manufacturer to identify that and report it. President Rodrigo Duterte says he plans to extend the tour of duty of Philippine National Police Chief Ronald Dela Rosa by 2 to 3 months before assigning him to the Bureau of Corrections. Dela Rosa is supposed to retire in January. Duterte says he still needs Dela Rosa to oversee some changes in infrastructure in police camps in Mindanao. Dela Rosa earlier said Duterte offered him a government post which he will assume when he retires. Duterte says he wants Dela Rosa to take over the post because it is the trickiest position in government. He adds many Bucor heads have come and gone without resolving drug trafficking in the National Penitentiary. The president also says Dela Rosa might have failed to meet the public's expectations when it came to leading the PNP, but that it would be a waste of the police official's youth and energy if he was not given a position. Duterte, who began his presidency with highly publicized claims that national prisons were hotbeds for drug trafficking, says he would micromanage Bucor under Dela Rosa. President Rodrigo Duterte on Tuesday says he does not think most Filipinos are ready for a shift to a federal form of government, a longtime advocacy of his. Duterte makes a comment during the Malacanang Press Corps Christmas party held in the palace. Duterte, in a resigned manner, says, quote, "It does not seem to ring a bell in the Visayas and Mindanao, or if at all." This bleak assessment can affect the government talks with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front and Moro National Liberation Front, two groups with different versions of the Bangsamoro Basic Law. Duterte often said nothing short of federalism will solve the problems of Mindanao, his home region. The president, who has long advocated for a federal Philippines, earlier created a consultative committee to study amendments of the 1987 Constitution, a necessary step in the shift to federalism. But a year from when he created the body, he has yet to name its 25 members. The think tank of his party, PDP Laban, has submitted to Congress a draft federal constitution, which is being discussed by various technical working groups in the House of Representatives. The House Wednesday is set to take up a resolution to adopt a constituent assembly as means to amend the current constitution.